integrated sales and marketing with Zoho application. And you guys have heard all about Zoho campaigns. You've heard all about Sales IQ. This session is basically talking about how to bring those few things together, okay? So when we started talking about Sales IQ, and Azambi has kind of talked about it as well, there's a lot of value, I think, that you'll have seen that comes when you have not only Sales IQ on your website, but when it's connected to your CRM. Because that's going to allow you to add leads and add contacts to your CRM, but then also be able to collect more data from the people that you're chatting to, develop leads, develop contacts even further, create deals, and track all of those people back and forth across your website. So there's a lot of value that you're getting by having that sync moving in a two-way direction. And just for a little bit of review, you can see on the, your right side of the screen, there's the CRM info there where you're able to create potentials and see all of your CRM information going forward, right? But one of the things we haven't talked about is how there is some value when we integrate Sales IQ with campaigns even, right? So this is our web chat that we're able to talk to customers with our email marketing software. And one of the things that's pretty nifty is that you're able to add visitors to your campaigns, which I'll get to in just a second, but you're also able to use campaign data as a means of identifying who is on your website. So you can see that this, innermost ring, I want to say we're going to use Zoho campaigns data, and we're going to say for the people who received the consent campaign and clicked or opened it, right? So that way we'll actually move them to the center. And we'll actually be able to say these specific campaigns are really important to us right now. And this makes a lot of sense if you're sending out some kind of promotional email that gets them back onto your website, right? You know that they're engaged and they're warm and they might really just need a little help. If you've sent them an informational email, and you know exactly what that information was that you sent them, and you sent them to a specific page, now the rep that's chatting with them knows exactly really what these people know or what they don't know, and can serve them effectively. So this is one of those nifty ways that we're able to bridge that gap. And the way that we're able to do this is by essentially what's called backlinking, right? So what this allows us to do is pass data from campaigns back to Sales IQ, so we know basically who these people are. And so you see up in the URL bar up here, the address bar, the URL, which some of you might notice looks a little different. So you have outofline.zohosites.com, which is just the website, /intheloop1.html, which is the specific page on the site, and then there's a question mark there which says UTM source equals newsletter and UTM campaign equals consent. Now that's the part of the URL that is a little different looking, right? And the reason it's different is because it's actually a custom URL that is able to pass the data from campaigns to Sales IQ so that when the person opens that link from the campaign, Sales IQ is able to say, oh, that's where they're coming from, and they can let you know in the system. So that's how you make that happen. Now, I'm not going to go into too much more detail about that because it's a little more of a top-level thing, but that's a way that you can also try to just bridge that gap between the emails that you're sending to the pages that are landing on and exactly where people are coming from. Now, I mentioned just a second ago that you're able, or maybe not a second, a few more seconds ago, that you're able to actually use Sales IQ as a means of adding subscribers to your list, right? And one of the ways, well, actually the current way that you're able to do that, aside from just like, getting an email address, passing that to CRM, and then from CRM pushing it over to campaigns, which I'll talk about in just a little bit, one of the ways you can go directly from Sales IQ to campaigns is actually on the chat window itself. So you see on the bottom here in red, there's a little checkbox that says, I would like to receive more info via email, right? Now, this is a custom little message that you can add there and a checkbox that you can allow website visitors to opt into, right? So if you have a specific type of a few emails that you want to send out to people that are just, kind of getting familiar with your brand or your products or your company or your services or, what have you, you can basically have that little chance that they might want to opt in right there. And then since we have their email, we can just pass that directly to Zoho campaigns. One more way you can try to get more information to the people who need it. Lastly, one of the last kind of big things that we're able to do with this integration between campaigns and Sales IQ is actually bring the rest of your campaigns data in there in a contextual way while you're chatting. So this would be, Darlene is our agent here. She's talking to Chris Morales. And Chris here, as you see in the little box, he has actually received that consent campaign. So in that sense of being able to track your leads and your contacts onto your website, you're able to also see, what are the messages they've been receiving lately? What are the campaigns that we've been sending? This helps just give your agent, whether that's a support rep or that's a salesperson, or maybe you have some kind of like jack of all trades, like customer service person using Sales IQ. It helps just give everyone that needs to have that customer context, it gives them all of that information right there, right? And again, this is pretty cool because think about it. Aside from CRM, you also have some marketing data, and then you also have Zoho Desk data. So you're talking about sales, marketing, and support data all being pulled into this live chat situation, which again keeps that customer context, there in a really good way. So that was the first thing. So now comes the campaigns and CRM sync. And again, this is another form of the kind of two-way sync. And the reason why we've kind of underlined, or I guess I've underlined two-way, is that when we talk about integration, when we talk about passing data through different applications, typically what you usually have is just like, I've got a bunch of data here, and I'm just going to push it all over there, right? I've got it in one database, and I'm just going to shove it over into the next database. The problem is that usually you want to be able to return what's going on in this new application back to the first place. Does this kind of make sense? I mean, that's kind of a very broad way of speaking, but at least in the context of CRM, maybe you have a bunch of customers and now you want to sync that over to your email marketing software so you can target them with different promotions or market events to them or whatever, but then you also want to know how those emails are performing for those people to keep everything up to date in the customer record. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and just hop over into Zoho campaigns here, and I'm going to also bring up Zoho CRM, the demo where I'm going to actually show you how to do that integration, how to sync some data, some best practices, but then also, since that's a little basic, I'm also going to show you some of the cool stuff that you can do as far as sending data back. Because again, as I said, pretty much any CRM or an email marketing software can push data from one thing to the next, right? CRM, Zoho CRM, you can push your data into MailChimp if that's what you're using. If you're using like Constant Contact, you can push it that way. It's not too hard, but the good thing that happens when you're using software that's built by one company, that where teams are sitting close together and they actually like talk to each other on a somewhat daily basis or somewhat regular basis, is that you're able just to do a bit more, because integration is actually really, really hard. For every dollar people actually spend on software, they spend $5 on integration. With Zoho, we're trying to, not only not have you spend that extra $5, but we're trying to just make it as easy as we can for you, because that's really where all the value is. So when we're going to integrate these two different applications, we're going to go to contacts, and then we're basically wanting to sync data to create lists. And generally speaking, we don't want to create like 1,000 lists, right? I know that some of us definitely do that, and it can happen. In general, the general best practice is that you want to try to keep to these kind of overarching categories like leads or contacts or customers or partners, and then underneath that, you want to segment all of them out. When we're going to do the integration, we're going to hop over to the sync area. So creating that bridge normally would require a bunch of code. Well, here we make it easier. It could be easier, and we're going to make it easier in the future, but still, this is pretty easy. You need the email address of the administrator of your account, and then a ZSC key. Just click here, a code will be generated, copy it, paste it in the field, hit save, bridge built. The easiest bridge you'll ever build in your life. That's basically the integration. Now the next step is thinking about what is the data that we need to bring across, right? That's the next question that we need to solve when we are dealing with, with these syncs. So far I have leads here, and I have customers, right? So let's just do contacts. I want to sync all of the contacts in Zoho CRM over into campaigns, so that way I can segment my contacts in a bunch of nifty ways, and I can follow up with them. That's just for the point of this demo. If you probably already had customers, you'd probably want to refine that in some other way. So we'll call this contacts, and this is just a description for your own record. And then you're going to basically select the module that you want to sync with, right? So we're telling the systems right now, okay, I want to go into CRM, and I want to sync the contacts. So which module do you mean, right? Which is the big group of records that you're choosing? Well, we're choosing contacts, so we'll select contacts. If you have custom modules, you can use those as well. And now we have a few different options. We can say all contacts, we can choose a custom view, or we can select some specific criteria. This is over in CRM now. A view is basically a way of just organizing all of these different records, right? So if you see up in the top left right now, I know it's a little hard to see, but it says all leads. And I'll zoom in to make this easier. And if you want to create a view, or basically, what else is a view, you can see there's all these different views. So we say all leads. We could look at my leads, which would just show me a view of leads that are assigned to me as, being the rep in this account. Or I could look at today's leads, which would be a view of just the leads that have been added to the CRM today, right? So that's what a view does. It helps me just have just basically lets me look at the records that I want to look at. And and these views are saved, so that way I can always come back to them when I need it, right? Now, in CRM, you obviously have this whole filter bar here. The filter is really just meant as more of a one-time helping you search and find things. So I know it's a little confusing, but you have views are going to be your kind of mainstays that you go back to time and time again. Filters are going to help you quickly find a bunch of records, whenever you need them. So if you need to create a view, all you do is you just do this here, create view, and you'll be able to specify the criteria that you want to see. For example, one of the things that we give you already, today's leads. So the criteria would be the record was created on this given day, right? So we could specify that. We could say, I just want to see my leads that are in Texas, right? So for that, we would say the field is going to be like state or mailing state, whatever we use. And then we would say is, and then we would write Texas, right? And that would be able to sort all that stuff out. So that's a view. So since those views are those kind of mainstays, ways of seeing your records that you're going to come back to a bunch and are, things that are obviously important to your business, we give you the option to sync views, including your custom ones. So obviously, I showed you the leads module, which didn't have any custom views. But the user-created views, which is another way of saying custom views, right, are these clicked campaign or NPS, right? So that's a view that those are views that we've made already. So I could sync those if I wanted to. Another option is by criteria, and again, it's the same thing as basically a view, which is just specifying the criteria that you want. Okay, but since we're talking about contacts, I want all the contacts. I'm just going to go ahead and select that. And then I need to add them to a mailing list. Well, so far there's leads, customers, and then our newsletter mailing list called In the Loop. So that doesn't really suit us, so we're going to need a contacts sync, or a contacts list, rather. Now, underneath this field, you see there's a little radio dial button thing, which says for sign-up form subscription, do we want to allow this or not to allow this, right? So this basically allows us to create a sign-up form that will be attached to this list. So whenever someone signs up through the sign-up form, they'll join the list, right? Now, for a list of contacts or for a list of customers, by a show of hands, who thinks it's a good idea to create a sign-up form for customers or contacts and put that on our website? So the reason why we don't want to do that for something like customers or contacts is because a customer or a contact is someone that you have a relationship with. They've come through your system. If I was some random stranger, I'm not going to just be a customer all of a sudden just because I signed up a form, right? It's kind of that thing like, who's my family? And someone just randomly, submits the form. It's like, oh, that doesn't quite do it. There's other criteria that go into it, okay? So if you're using something for a list for leads or some kind of asset that you're trying to build, like a mailing list that sends out a newsletter, a sign-up form subscription that's public is totally a good idea, But for things like contacts, customers, partners, confirmed things, that's not something you generally want to do, okay? So for that, we'll say no, and we'll hit Save List, and save and continue. Next, we're going to map our fields. So this is basically just saying the fields that are in CRM, I want those fields to be brought over into Zoho campaigns. Unfortunately, you have to map these manually, which I am pushing very hard to have not ever happen again because it only takes like 2 minutes, but it's 2 minutes of your life that you're never getting back and you should not have lost in the first place. So I hope we change that, but you'll need to map all those fields. I highly recommend that you map as much data as you can because that gives your marketing department or your marketing person or you more things to work with, right? So that's pretty helpful. So from there, we're going to go ahead and hit Save and Continue, and then we're going to just kind of configure the sync. So we can choose to have this happen one time, or we can do it daily, weekly, or monthly. I recommend doing it as often as possible. And it says, what time do you want to sync at? I recommend putting that before work hours start, so when you come into work, you always have as up-to-date data as possible. Data to be fetched, do you want to do it now, or do you want to do it later? We're going to go ahead and say now. And then we have these little check boxes for sync configuration, which is basically just updating some rules for what do we do in some certain situations. So, for example, update email opt-outs, right? So this is for people who have unsubscribed from a list. This will update them in CRM as an opt-out. So we know that this person unsubscribed, okay? The next one here is update deleted contacts, right? So if a contact has been deleted in CRM, what do we want to do with them in campaigns? Do we want to delete the record, or do we want to just unsubscribe them from the list? I recommend going with unsubscribe because as a general rule, you don't want to delete data, but if you absolutely know this is something you want to delete, then go for it. And then exclude email opt-out contacts, okay? So that's quite a mouthful there. But basically, that just means that if someone has been marked as an opt-out in CRM, just don't, and when we sync them, when we update the information in campaigns, do we want to either delete them or do we want to unsubscribe them, okay? So again, you can choose what to do. Generally, it's best to just unsubscribe them because, again, you don't want to delete data. So that is basically creating a sync, okay? It's pretty much that easy. The next thing is basically sending data back to CRM, all right? That's the thing that you're really getting about value out of. So for example, if we go to the contacts module right now in our CRM, we can look at this view right here. So you see this view is called clicked campaigns. So this view is essentially showing us people who have received a campaign, and not only that, but they've actually clicked one from us, right? And this is a workaround, essentially, that I've done to do this, because normally you can't actually do this with some of the different limits that we have. So this is kind of a workaround where we're basically defining the criteria as a custom field that we've built to send campaigns data to CRM. And then with that data that we're putting in the field, we're just selecting a value in the field and using that as the basis of our view. So I know that's a pretty technical explanation. The simpler way, of course, this is the data that we're storing in CRM that's coming from campaigns. And this is the information that we have here. We know that they received this campaign, they've clicked it, they opened it, and they opened it one time and they clicked it one time, right? So when I created my view, I'm saying, look at this field, and now show me from this field all the people who have clicked something. So I literally just write in the word clicked into that area, and you'll be able to find it and bring it up and create your view, right? All right, so thank you very much. I really appreciate it.